This pool party is for civilized people only. No mutts, no fur, no pets. Period.
Karen's voice sliced through the air, smug and commanding. She pressed a brightly printed flyer onto the community notice board. The words in bold letters screamed, HOA Pool Party, strictly no pets allowed. Karen's grin widened as she admired her work. She adjusted her wide-brimmed hat, lips curling in satisfaction. From across the street, on the Johnsons' porch, a dog watched. His ears perked, eyes narrowing, head tilting in quiet curiosity. He wasn't just any dog. He was Max, the soul of the neighborhood. He had been mocked before, but tonight, something was different. Karen marched down the street, thrusting invitations into neighbors' hands. Her heels clicked on the pavement like a drumbeat of arrogance. Everyone is welcome, well, almost everyone, she said loudly enough for the entire block to hear. Let's keep this neighborhood clean and pet-free. We wouldn't want dog hair floating in the pool or muddy paw prints on the tiles, would we? Her laugh was sharp, the kind that scraped against nerves. Neighbors exchanged uneasy glances, forcing polite smiles. Max lifted his head higher, brown eyes fixed on her. Karen turned deliberately, pointing a manicured finger at him. And especially not you, she sneered. Don't even think about showing up. Max's ears twitched. He didn't move, didn't bark. He simply stared, tail thumping once against the porch, as if filing away a promise. Karen scoffed and walked off, satisfied with her own cruelty. By evening, whispers drifted across the cul-de-sac. Parents frowned at the invitations. Children begged to bring their pets, their protests hushed quickly by weary sighs. At the pool, Karen supervised her volunteers, barking orders as they strung up decorations. Higher. That banner isn't centered. And match the balloons with the tablecloths. We're not running a circus here. She paced in circles around the water, like a commander preparing for battle. Every detail mattered. This wasn't just a party. It was her showcase, her chance to remind everyone who ruled Maplewood Estates. Meanwhile, Max sat quietly by his fence. The string lights reflected in his eyes as he watched Karen's empire take shape. His tail brushed the ground once more. The neighbors may have felt powerless, but Max was different. He had no clipboard, no rules, no speeches. What he had was instinct, and instinct told him Karen's reign needed to fall. The next morning, Karen strutted through the neighborhood with a megaphone. Her voice boomed from block to block. Attention, neighbors. The HOA pool party begins tomorrow at 6 sharp. Remember, this is a sophisticated event, not some barnyard gathering. Leave your filthy pets at home. Children groaned, rolling their eyes behind closed curtains. Two friends whispered as Karen passed. Why does she hate Max so much? He never hurt anyone. The others smirked. Maybe Max will get her back one day. Their giggles were quickly silenced when their mother gave them a warning look. That night, Karen stood in front of her mirror, practicing her smile. She rehearsed her hostess act, her victory pose, her imagined compliments. In her mind, she was already the queen of the neighborhood. But outside, under the hum of crickets, Max was moving. His paws pressed softly against the grass as he crept along the fence line. He paused at the pool, eyes scanning the decorations. He could smell the food already, burgers sizzling, hot dogs ready, and deep inside Karen's kitchen, the heavy scent of a frosted cake. His nose twitched, his tail swished slowly. In the glow of the lights, his eyes narrowed, not playful, but purposeful. The following day, the party bloomed in full color. Families arrived in bright summer clothes. Music thumped from the speakers. Children splashed in the shallow end while parents laughed and chatted. The air was thick with sunscreen and barbecue smoke. And there was Karen, standing tall, sunglasses gleaming, clipboard clutched like a scepter. Welcome, welcome, everyone, she announced with theatrical flair. Isn't it wonderful to celebrate community without all those pesky pets running around? Let's keep our pool pristine. Her guests clapped politely, though many exchanged hidden eye rolls. Karen soaked it in, her chest puffed with pride. She believed she had already won. At the edge of the pool, Little Sarah Johnson tugged at her mother's hand. "Do you think Max knows he's not allowed?" she whispered. He looked so sad when Karen yelled at him. Her mother sighed, smoothing Sarah's hair. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Max is smarter than she thinks." She was right. While Karen basked in her glory, Max slipped silently through a gap in the back fence. His paws touched the cool grass near the pool. He crouched low, watching the decorations, the balloons, the guests laughing with drinks in their hands. His nose lifted, catching every scent, calculating. The pride of the party was Karen's. But pride, Max understood, was fragile. Pride could shatter. He crept closer, tail wagging, not with joy this time, but with mischief, with intent. His tongue lolled as his chest rose and fell in quiet rhythm. His eyes gleamed in the glow of the lights, reflecting not innocence, but resolve. Karen believed she had silenced him. She believed she had banished him. But some rules were never meant to last. And some battles could only be won by those underestimated the most. Max waited in the shadows, patient, steady. The night was young, and so was his revenge. The music thumped louder as twilight settled over Maplewood Estates. The pool glowed under strings of golden lights, casting shimmering reflections across the water. Laughter rang out, the sound of glasses clinking, children splashing, and Karen's voice rising above it all. She stood tall in her sun hat and oversized sunglasses, clipboard pressed tightly to her chest like it was a crown jewel. To her, everything was perfect. Too perfect. She scanned the decorations with hawk-like eyes. "Careful with that cake," she snapped at a teenager carrying it outside. "If it tilts even half an inch, you'll ruin the centerpiece of my event. Hold it straight. Yes, like that. Now put it on the dessert table, gently." She adjusted a banner herself, muttering about how no one had her eye for detail. Neighbors nodded politely, sipping their drinks, secretly wishing she would just sit down and stop barking orders. From the shadows beyond the pool fence, Max watched. His ears twitched at every sound, his nose quivered at every smell. Burgers sizzling on the grill, frosting thick on the cake, chlorine sharp in the humid air. But more than food or scent, he sensed opportunity. His tail gave a slow, steady wag. He was patient. He was ready. The gap in the fence where the boards had loosened was just wide enough. Max lowered himself to the grass, wriggled through on his belly, and slipped onto the party grounds. Nobody noticed. The music, the chatter, the chaos, it was his cover. Children squealed as they splashed, parents laughed. Karen posed dramatically near the banner as if paparazzi were filming her. Max crept low, weaving between chairs, his nails clicking softly against the pavement before he froze, ears flattening. Karen's voice sliced through the noise. "Look at this turnout," she declared proudly to a group of neighbors. And not a single animal in sight. Just clean, sophisticated fun. She raised her glass, smirking as though she had conquered an empire. Max slunk behind a cluster of balloons, crouching as her gaze swept across the crowd. His tail brushed the ground, but he stayed silent. Karen turned away, satisfied, and Max moved again. He pressed close to the buffet table, his nose twitching furiously at the scent of roasted chicken. For a moment, temptation nearly pulled him in. But this wasn't about food. This was about something bigger. At the shallow end of the pool, children tossed a beach ball, shrieking with delight. Max ducked behind a chair, his eyes following the ball's arc. Each sound, each burst of laughter gave him cover. Step by step, he advanced. A waiter carrying lemonade walked past. Max darted under the tablecloth, paws silent against the grass, slipping unseen. A giggle came from underneath the table. Little Sarah Johnson, hiding from the noise, gasped when she saw Max. Her eyes lit up, and she put a finger to her lips. "Shh," she whispered, stroking his fur. Max licked her hand once, as if sealing a pact. Sarah's grin widened, and she whispered, "Go get her, boy." Max crept back out, moving toward the heart of the party. The pool shimmered in the glow of lanterns, and Karen strutted near the edge, showing off her decorations. "Do you see how clean the water is tonight? Not a single leaf, not a single hair, Nothing to spoil the view. She bragged loudly, ensuring everyone heard. And that's because we don't allow animals to ruin it. The neighbors clapped politely, though a few smirked knowingly. They had seen Max slip in, though no one warned her. Some leaned back, drinks in hand, curious to see what would happen. The air seemed to hum with expectation. Max circled behind the dessert table. His eyes locked onto the towering cake, 3 layers high, decorated with seashell-shaped frosting, Karen's pride and joy. His ears flicked as he crouched, tail twitching. He could hear Karen's laugh echoing across the water, sharp and grating. Every boast she made only fueled his resolve. He waited for the right moment, slipping from one hiding spot to the next. Behind chairs, under tables, through clusters of legs, always silent, always steady. A balloon popped suddenly, startling the guests. Gasps filled the air. Karen flinched, shouting, "Who did that?" These decorations were expensive. She fussed over the scattered ribbons, her back turned. That was Max's chance. He darted across the open space, paws light, movements smooth, slipping unnoticed behind a cake stand. He crouched low, body tense, eyes fixed on the centerpiece. The guests nearby spotted him, gasped softly, but said nothing. Some even smiled, covering their mouths to hide their laughter. They wanted this. They wanted Karen to be humbled. Karen turned again, her sharp eyes sweeping the crowd. "Everyone, gather near the pool," she demanded, raising her glass. "Let's toast to the most successful HOA event yet. And may our neighborhood remain perfect, without disruptions." Max pressed himself flat against the grass, invisible in the shadows of the dessert table. His ears twitched at her words. His tail gave the faintest wag. He was inside now, deep in enemy territory, and Karen had no idea. As Karen lifted her glass high, the neighbors raised theirs reluctantly. She soaked in the attention, standing taller, chin high. To order, to rules, to keeping this place, she stopped suddenly, eyes narrowing. Something felt off. She glanced around. The crowd was restless, smiles tugging at lips, eyes darting toward the buffet. Karen frowned, adjusting her sunglasses. "What?" she snapped, suspicious. "What are you all looking at?" Nobody spoke. Nobody warned her. Behind her, Max crouched lower, his gaze fixed on the shimmering cake, his muscles coiling like springs. The party roared on. Music pulsed. Lights twinkled. And the hero no one expected was already in place, ready to strike. The party swelled with noise, music pulsing through the summer night as laughter carried across the pool. Karen stood at the center of it all, beaming with satisfaction, her glass raised like she was queen of Maplewood Estates. To order, to beauty, to a neighborhood free from mess and mayhem, she declared. The neighbors clinked their glasses half-heartedly, many sneaking glances toward the dessert table where Max crouched in the shadows. The dog's eyes gleamed under the lantern light. His chest rose and fell with quiet intensity, tail twitching like a fuse waiting to spark. Around him, the sense of grilled meat, frosting, and chlorine mingled into one intoxicating promise of mischief. He had waited long enough. The moment was here. Karen took another sip of her drink, strutting near the poolside. "Look at this water," she boasted. "Pristine, untouched. And do you know why? Because we don't let filthy creatures spoil it. That is leadership. That is what true community looks like." She never noticed the silence that followed, the way her guests' attention shifted behind her. A soft gasp slipped through the crowd. Then another. Phones were lifted discreetly, cameras trained. Karen's smug grin faltered. "What is it now?" she snapped. "Why are you all staring like that?" A rustle came from beneath the tablecloth. Max burst out from under the dessert table with a sudden leap. His paws hit the grass, his body launching upward, and in one glorious bound, he collided with the cake stand. The towering masterpiece wobbled once, twice, and then toppled forward in slow motion, crashing onto the grass with a wet, sugary splatter. Gasps filled the air, then laughter erupted. Karen spun around just in time to see her cake, her pride, her centerpiece, lying in ruins, Frosting smeared across the ground, Max standing proudly over it with whipped cream streaked across his snout. His tail wagged in wide, triumphant arcs. "What? No!" Karen shrieked, rushing forward, her heels sinking into the grass. "You mutt! You disgusting creature! Somebody get him out of here!" But Max wasn't done. His ears perked at the sound of children squealing, and in a flash, he darted past Karen, weaving between legs as she stumbled after him. He leapt onto a lounge chair, the force tipping it backward into the pool with a loud splash that drenched two guests standing nearby. They sputtered, dripping, before bursting into laughter. Max shook himself vigorously, sending droplets flying in every direction. Guests squealed and covered their faces, but the kids cheered wildly. Karen screamed over the chaos, her voice cracking. "This is not funny. This is an HOA-approved event." Max's nose caught the smell of burgers sizzling on the grill. In one swift move, he darted across the patio, snagged a bun from the edge of the serving tray, and bolted toward the pool. The cook shouted in protest, but by the time he reached the table, Max was already gone, bun clenched triumphantly between his teeth. Karen chased him, red-faced and furious, shouting, "Catch him! Don't just stand there." But the crowd only laughed harder, some even clapping as Max ran circles around her. Every time she lunged, he dodged effortlessly, skidding across the wet tiles. Then came the moment that sealed her humiliation. Max stopped at the pool's edge, tail wagging, buns still dangling from his mouth. He stared directly at Karen, head tilted, almost daring her. Karen charged, arms outstretched. "You filthy mutt, I'll." Max jumped. His body arced through the air, a golden blur against the lantern-lit night. He hit the water with a mighty splash, sending a wave crashing across the deck. Karen shrieked as the spray soaked her hair, her makeup running in streaks. Guests howled with laughter, phones recording every second. The dog surfaced, paddling happily across the pool, bun still in his jaws. Children jumped in after him, cheering, their splashes adding to the chaos. Karen stomped at the edge, pointing furiously. "Get out of there. You're contaminating the pool. This is a disaster." But nobody listened. Parents chuckled, sipping their drinks. Teenagers filmed TikToks. The more Karen screamed, the more absurd she looked. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, her perfect party dissolving around her. Max climbed out of the shallow end, water streaming from his fur. He shook himself hard, showering everyone nearby. A cluster of balloons tangled in his tail as he darted back toward the tables, dragging them behind him like colorful trophies. Guests doubled over in laughter, some nearly crying as Karen stomped helplessly after him. "Stop recording this. Delete those videos. This is sabotage," she wailed, swiping at phones, but the laughter drowned her out. Every neighbor, every guest, was witnessing her downfall. And Max, the dog she had banned, was the star of the show. He bounded back toward the ruined cake, planted his paws in the frosting, and looked around proudly, tongue lolling from his mouth. His tail wagged in wide, powerful arcs as if he were bowing to his audience. The crowd cheered. Someone shouted, "Best party ever." Karen's knees buckled. She dropped to the grass, staring at the chaos with wide, horrified eyes. Her banner sagged, balloons popped one after another, the pool churned with children and a dripping dog. Everything she had built, everything she had bragged about, lay in ruins. She covered her face with trembling hands. "This was supposed to be perfect," she muttered, voice cracking. "Perfect." Max padded closer, frosting still clinging to his fur. He stopped just short of her, tilting his head as if to study her. For a long moment, silence fell. Then he sneezed, sending a spray of cake crumbs onto her dress. The crowd roared with laughter once more. Karen's face burned crimson as she scrambled to her feet, pointing wildly. "This isn't over. You'll all regret this. That beast will be banned forever." Her voice was shrill, desperate, almost drowned by the cheering of her neighbors. Max wagged his tail, standing tall in the center of the wreckage. He didn't need words. His actions had spoken loudly enough. The Queen of Maplewood had been dethroned, not by another human, but by the very creature she had tried to silence. The party had turned, the night rewritten. Karen's perfect paradise lay in pieces, and Max was the hero no one had expected, but everyone now adored. The chaos rippled long after the splash faded. Music played on, laughter echoed, and phones kept recording as Karen stood drenched, her hair plastered to her face, her dress stained with frosting and pool water. She trembled with rage, pointing at Max, who now sat proudly on the dessert table, frosting dripping from his fur, balloons tangled around his tail like trophies. His tongue lolled happily, his chest rising and falling in calm rhythm, completely unbothered by the storm he had created. "This mutt has ruined everything," Karen screeched, her voice cracking as she stomped across the patio. "My decorations, my pool, my party gone. And you all just stand there laughing? Do something. Someone call animal control." But no one moved. No one called. Instead, chuckles spread through the crowd. Parents smirked, teenagers laughed openly, and children cheered Max's name as if he were a superhero.
"Go, Max."
"Do it again," one shouted, while another clapped and yelled, "Best party ever?" Karen's jaw dropped. She spun in circles, looking from one neighbor to another, desperate for support, but found only smirks and sideways glances. "What's wrong with you people?" she shouted. "He's a menace. He's breaking every rule in the HOA guidelines." That was when Mr. Thompson, a balding man with reading glasses who had lived in the neighborhood for 20 years, cleared his throat loudly. "Karen," he said firmly, holding up one of her flyers. "There's just one problem with your story. There are no HOA guidelines about pets at community events. You made that rule up." The crowd murmured in agreement, nodding. Karen's face froze. She stammered, I was simply clarifying. Protecting public health. Nobody wants dirty animals near food." Mrs. Patel, carrying her toddler on her hip, stepped forward. "My dog is cleaner than your attitude," she snapped, her voice carrying sharp authority. "Max has never hurt anyone. He's part of this community, more than you ever were." The crowd erupted in cheers. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish, her face bright red under the lanterns. "You can't be serious," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're taking his side? He ruined everything." A teenager lifted his phone, showing her the live stream that was already blowing up on social media. "Oh, people are loving this," he grinned. "You're trending, Karen. #PoolPartyRevenge." Laughter rolled through the guests. Karen swiped at the phone, but the boy darted away, laughing as Max barked once, as if mocking her. "You don't understand," Karen screamed, her hands shaking. "I worked for weeks on this. I planned every detail. This was supposed to be perfect." "Maybe that's the problem," muttered one of the fathers, sipping his drink. "You cared more about perfection than people." "And pets," added another. "Especially pets." The crowd turned toward Max, who wagged his tail proudly, his eyes bright and unbothered. Children ran up to him, hugging him despite his frosting-covered fur. Sarah Johnson threw her arms around his neck, giggling as he licked her cheek. "See, Mom? I told you he'd get her back." Karen staggered backward, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She tried once more, voice hoarse and breaking. "You people will regret this. I'll file complaints. I'll write letters. I'll—" "No, Karen," Mr. Thompson cut in, his voice like a gavel. "Enough. Tonight proved what we've all known for a long time. You don't speak for this neighborhood. You bully it. And we're done letting you." The word struck her harder than the splashes ever had. The clipboard slipped from her hand and clattered to the ground. She looked around one last time, searching for even a single ally. None came. Every face turned against her, illuminated by the lantern glow and the shimmer of the pool. Humiliation flooded her. With a strangled cry, Karen shoved past the crowd, heels scraping against the pavement as she stormed toward the exit. "This isn't over," she screamed into the night. "You'll see. I'll be back." But her voice carried no power anymore. It was empty, shrill, a threat no one believed. The gate slammed behind her, and just like that, Karen was gone. Silence hung for a moment, broken only by the soft lapping of the pool water. Then a cheer rose, loud and unshakable. "To Max!" someone shouted. Glasses clinked, laughter roared, and applause rolled like thunder. Max stood tall in the center of it all, head held high, tail wagging in wide arcs. The neighbors surrounded him, clapping, cheering, showering him with affection. To the kids, he was a hero. To the adults, he was a reminder of joy, of resilience, of communities stronger than Karen's rules. Even the DJ switched the track, blasting a triumphant anthem as the party transformed from Karen's dictatorship into something real, a celebration of freedom, laughter, and a dog who had dared to stand against arrogance. The night stretched on with dancing, splashing, and stories retold again and again. "Did you see her face when the cake fell?" One neighbor laughed. "The way he jumped into the pool," another added. Everyone had their favorite moment, their favorite snapshot of revenge. And in every story, Max was the star. Later, as the crowd thinned and the lanterns burned low, Max curled up near the pool, tired but content. Sarah nestled against him, whispering, "You were amazing, Max. You showed her." His eyes drifted shut, tail wagging softly in his sleep. The neighborhood had found its hero, and it wasn't the woman with the clipboard. It was the dog she tried to silence. Karen had wanted perfection, but what she got instead was unforgettable. Her downfall would live forever in the whispers of neighbors, in the laughter of children, and in the endless clips replaying across phones under the banner of #PoolPartyRevenge. The night belonged to Max.